When the internet began, bulletin board services, or BBS, became the first online communities of the so-called information superhighway. Using their phone lines, people logged in from all over America to talk about sports, games, movies, and on one BBS in particular, share their ghost stories. Over time, those communities all went dark, except for one lone server that continues to operate somewhere in an unknown part of Pennsylvania's Rust Belt. A relic of the 1990s, veiled in mystery, it is a digital archive of humanity's strangest encounters with the unknown, as told by the people who experienced them. My name is Brandon Schexnayder, and you are listening to Fear Daily.
Subject: Something's coming. User: Elkin2. Posted May 17th, 1999.
I lost my wife, Sarah, in February. It was a car accident, a hit and run, the kind of thing you see on the news and think that's absolutely horrible before flipping the channel and moving on, because it's the kind of thing it ain't supposed to happen to you. But it did to us. One second, I was married to the love of my life, my high school sweetheart, mother of my children. The next, I was alone. To this day, I am still consumed in grief, but with these kids, I just don't have time to really think about it. I have to keep living life and moving forward. For them. But that doesn't mean some days when I wake up, I expect her to be there with me, or maybe hear her down in the kitchen humming while she makes coffee like she always did. But obviously, that never happens. Like I said, it's just me and the kids trying to figure out what life looks like without her. I've got 3 of them, Elliot, Joey, and Maddie. The 2 boys are 12 and 10, but Maddie, the spitting image of her mother, is only 7. What's really interesting, though, is that they're each handling this whole thing in their own way. Elliot's acting out in school, which doesn't surprise me. Joey doesn't talk about it at all and pretends nothing is ever wrong. And Maddie, well, Maddie says she talks to her mother every night in her dreams. Now, of course, when she first told me, I thought it was grief. She's so young and experienced such a horrible loss, I just assume that was her way of holding on to her mom, her brain making up something comforting for her to cope with reality. So I didn't correct her the first time. But then she started knowing things she shouldn't. It started small. One night, while brushing her teeth, she turned to me and asked, "Did you ever find Mom's ring?" Sarah's wedding ring had always been a little loose on her finger, but it was a family heirloom, so she refused to get it resized. Well, a few weeks before she died, she lost it somewhere in the house. We searched everywhere, under the couch cushions, in the vents, even in the drain pipes, but we never found it. If it wasn't creepy enough that Maddie knew it was gone, a few days later, she woke me up at 7:13 in the morning on a Sunday and said, "Mom told me to tell you you should go look in the attic." I laughed, pulled her into bed to cuddle with me for a few, and just let it go. But Maddie would not. It was all she talked about as I made pancakes that morning, so I promised her after we got the plates put in the dishwasher, I'd go check. And sure enough, when I did, guess what I found near the vent where the insulation was pulled away? Sarah's ring. How it could have ended up there, I've got no idea. But it was, and Somehow, Maddie knew. When I asked her how, she just cocked her head and said, "Daddy, I already told you. Mom told me." As strange as this was, though, it was only the start. Last month, she told me Joey was going to break his arm at school, and she was so matter-of-fact about it, the hair stood up on my arm when she told us. "Joey, Mom said you should stay off the jungle gym today," she said to her brother as he shoved Lucky Charms into his mouth, not giving two shits about what his sister had to say. Sure enough, that afternoon, the school called. Joey fell off the monkey bars, snapped his radius in 2 places. Maddie just nodded when I told her, like she already knew. Last week, though, was the worst one yet. Maddie woke up screaming in the middle of the night. I ran into her room and found her sitting up in bed, shaking. I wrapped my arms around her and asked what was wrong, gently rocking my baby girl back and forth, but she was sobbing so hard she could barely catch her breath. Finally, after several minutes, she looked up at me with those big brown eyes and said, "Mom says we have to leave." I froze. "Leave?" She nodded. "We have to sell the house, Dad. We have to go before it happens." I felt my stomach drop. "Before what happens, sweetheart?" She just shook her head. "I don't know, but Mommy said something bad is going to happen, like real bad." It was the way she said it that made her words so terrifying. She was so sure of herself. I tried to tell her it was just a bad dream, but by now, we both knew that my words were nothing more than that. I don't know what to do. Maddie has not been wrong yet. Something is surely on its way, and I know how crazy it sounds, but I believe her. We've lived in this house for 14 years. I don't want to leave it. I don't want to uproot my kids after everything they've already lost. Hell, I don't want to leave behind the memories that Sarah and I shared here. This house is ours. But Maddie doesn't make things up for attention. And after everything else she's predicted, I can't shake the feeling that she's right.
Subject: Urban Paranoia. User: Smill67. Posted November 4th, 1998.
I swear this isn't paranoia, but everywhere I go, someone is watching me, and I don't know what to do about it. It's not the kind of thing where you catch someone staring and they quickly look away. No, this is different. Their eyes linger, unblinking, unrelenting. They don't flinch when I notice. They don't pretend to be doing something else. It started 3 weeks ago on a Monday. A completely normal day, or so I thought. My usual morning routine: wake up, shower, tie the same stupid tie, and walk the same 10-minute route to the office, 2 blocks, coffee shop, 3 more blocks, office. Nothing different, nothing strange, until I stepped out of my apartment. The second my foot hit the pavement, I felt it. That sensation on my skin, like icy fingers being dragged along it. You know the feeling when you're alone, but you know you're not. I turned, expecting to see someone behind me, but there was no one, just old Mr. Sweeney from 3B walking his Cocker Spaniel. He looked at me for too long, his lips slightly parted like he wanted to say something but thought better of it. I brushed it off. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe he was. At the coffee shop, it happened again. The cute girl behind the counter with all the tattoos, a kid, really, who I've seen every morning for at least a year, just watched me. Usually, it's a simple exchange. Morning, usual? I nod, she makes my coffee, and that's that. But that day, she stood there, gripping the counter, her knuckles white. I had to clear my throat before she finally muttered something and punched in my order. Weird, but I let it go. Maybe she was having a bad day too. But then, it kept happening. Everywhere I went, people were watching. At first, I told myself I was imagining it, but it wasn't normal. They weren't just looking at me, they were looking for me. And when they found me, they just held their gaze unwavering. At work, my coworkers whispered in hushed voices whenever I passed by. At the grocery store, the cashier didn't ask for my rewards card like he usually did. He just stared as I bagged my own groceries, his lips pressed in a firm, unreadable line. When I got home that first night, I went straight to the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror. Was there something off? Had I been walking around with some sort of physical change that I'm unaware of? Did someone draw a dick on my face or something like Randy, my college roommate, used to do to the first unlucky co-ed to pass out drunk? Nah, man, nothing. Who would have drawn it anyway? I live alone. All the mirror showed was me staring right back at me. The next day, I experienced the same thing, followed by yet another of the same thing. So I started changing my routine, taking different routes, walking through alleys, doubling back on my steps. It didn't help. The stairs always followed. I tested it even. If I walked faster, they reacted. If I stopped abruptly, they did too. 2 days ago, the newspaper stand guy finally said something that sent ice through my veins. I was flipping through the headlines, pretending to read when he spoke. People been noticing you. I looked up, my throat dry. What? He shrugged, the corners of his lips curling slightly. You ain't real subtle, friend. Maybe just take a deep breath, yeah? I didn't buy a newspaper. I just walked away. Then, last night, I woke up at 3:12 a.m. to the sound of my doorknob rattling. Not like someone trying to break in, not forceful, just testing. It was a slow, careful twist, like they were checking if I had locked it. I grabbed the bat from under my bed and stood there waiting, my breath locked in my throat, staring at the door. The knob stopped moving after about 30 seconds. Nothing followed. No sounds, no movement. Obviously, I didn't sleep after that. Now, I cannot for the life of me understand what is going on. I used to think the city was the best place to find solitude, peace amidst the din of the many. But if this continues, maybe it's time to head out and find somewhere new. Then again, maybe I am just being paranoid.
Fear Daily is an independent podcast hosted by Brandon Schexnayder and written by Brennan Storr. with Joanna Smith serving as the consulting editor, audio production by Rachel Boyd, and sound design by Southern Gothic Media. This podcast is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are either products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or to real events or locations, is entirely coincidental. Ad-free versions of Fear Daily are available now on your favorite podcast apps. For more information, visit feardaily.com. But move fast, before the server goes offline.